I'm gonna say I was fucking bored today, but I was playing Total War. I was thinking, what would make this game fucking awesome? And my first thought was essentially increasing the unit cap for this, for the unit cap from 20 to either 30 or 40. And instead of just, add a blanket, adding it as like and then seeing willy-nilly what happens, what they do is they do it as a beta feature. And essentially that's a disclaimer saying it was a cock up, not our fault. It's a feature, we're trying it out, and I think they'll make the game so much more enjoyable. So I gotta say, sometimes the battles feel kind of eh. Like I'm playing this massive battle and it only feels full with two full army stacks. And I gotta say, I mean, I don't see why they don't actually do it because it would be amazing. Like full on proper epic battles. Literally, a one-on-one battle is I don't know. It gets kind of boring. And I would also say maybe beef up the health of the units. I have a feature that increases it does the same amount of damage, but maybe just increase the health of everything to make the battle last a little bit longer. And so they'll just make the battle more enjoyable. So you increase the unit cap to about 20 to 30 or 40. You can do it as a feature. Maybe you have a feature saying, okay, increase unit cap from here as standard, large, and extra large. And then that'll work well with essentially a feature where you increase the health, essentially double the health to make the battles last nice a lot, well, make them nice long. And then what I think the game is missing as well is essentially rituals that instead of work on armies, but essentially work on provinces. Like for example, the lizardmen. I think you should get the example of like your Slan and essentially have the abilities essentially, if not wipe out a city per ritual for like let's say a ritual costs quite a handsome fee, and essentially you add a ritual that essentially allows you to either annihilate a settlement depending on the level of your slime, or simply just reduce the knock down the settlement essentially. So the building go from level 3 to like level 1 or completely just destroyed. And essentially you would have rituals depending on for example, the Lisbon, essentially you would have your rituals attached to the strength of the ley lines, essentially. Fuck, what are they called? You know what I mean? And essentially this would like incentivize people to build up the essentially the ley lines for the lizardmen, and then you would essentially that would improve your ritual power, and it would actually give you a reason to build up your settlements like much faster. And then each faction would have their own ritual or their own rituals for damaging provinces essentially, and that'll make things a lot more fun because it's not just you don't have to worry about your armies simply attacking each other. They have to worry about them actually annihilating your settlement without even attacking your settlement. They could just simply just, depending on I think for certain factions, could just annihilate your settlement. So and also what they plan to what I think they plan to do add essentially is to sally your garrison out. So essentially you actually have a reason to build up a garrison, so you can use it to patrol your province, which I fucking hope they add because that would make things so much more fun. Then I don't have to. I can actually bring my armies out and about instead of having to spend like 5 or 6 turns like moving your army all the way across because some minor like beastman or some maybe rebellion comes and just annihilates you. It can actually build up your another reason to build up your province. And another thing is essentially I don't know how they would do this, but they would actually have to make add in naval combat, where essentially some factions would have more monster units that functions as ships, and other factions would simply have ships, whether with cannons or with magic. It would make things a lot more interesting. And it essentially would have like most factions that are very sea based, like the elves or the dark elves, would essentially it would make them actually really, really fucking dangerous because, yeah, frankly, a black arc is awesome because of the it reduces the upkeep on that specific black arc, but it doesn't really do much. Back to rituals. Essentially, your black arc should be able to essentially bombard cities in the province, essentially. So they could essentially raid, they could destroy, just give them more meat on the bones, essentially, and add essentially monsters in the ocean, where sometimes it might be random, or whether it's a random event, or whether it is essentially shows an actual monster in the ocean, and it shows an icon of a monster, and you may have like a 50-25% chance, depending on what your faction is and what unit it is. So it actually brings a lot more naval combat, because I don't think they would ever do that, but I don't know. That seems like a great. That would be pretty damn awesome. And also, I think another great idea would essentially be have an underground map, essentially with the dwarves and the Skaven. That would essentially, oh, that would be so goddamn awesome. Imagine having essentially double the map, or not say double, but like a good substantial portion, where it's in layers essentially, where you essentially have your the ground above, and then you have the dwarven settlements in the middle, and then you have your Skaven either taking over or below. And then I don't know, that would just make things a lot more interesting. And you can actually uh, like the continents are pretty damn saturated, and it can actually loosen up a bit, add some more minor factions, and I don't know, that would just make things a lot more fun. Um, Also, you can add, well, the realms of chaos is pretty shite, but the idea is essentially you have random gates that can open up into these chaos realms, and you can go in there and earn some frankly just like upgrade your armies essentially, just frankly for experience, or you can close them. And if you're a chaos faction, you can open a gate, but it's a 1 in 4 chance it might not open to your patron. Essentially, it might open a kind of like a rebel system, where essentially you open up a gate and it just crops up. So it gives a bit of unpredictability. But if you level up, it becomes more predictable. But yeah, that's just my ideas for making just meeting out the game, because right now, with just land battles, it makes things kind of boring. And also, custom heroes. Um, Yeah, I think what they should do essentially before they do custom lords, add custom heroes to your game essentially, where you can just customize your heroes as much as you want, like a kit bash essentially. But unlike the Demon Prince Daniel, actually make it fun, where you essentially have a customize your own heroes. I think it would be a lot of fun, where essentially you would have your each of certain effects. You had to pick from a certain effects that gives you bonuses and such, but not so much that it tops your um, tops your legendary heroes, or makes them as good as your legendary heroes, but not as good as your legendary lord. And also maybe a function where certain heroes about it, you turn them into legendary lords. You can actually turn your heroes into generals. But yeah, that's my thoughts for now.